This is second edition B&B. It arrived in a box on my doorstep this morning with only 8 days to go until Salute 52. I've got distracted from making all the models because I had to dive into this book. And I thought, although I've posted a quick video on my Magathea Facebook page showing me unboxing the box and taking this out and going, oh, look at this, is great. I thought what we ought to do is take a closer look into this lovely piece of wargaming literature. It's kind of special. So, first impressions. For those of you who don't know Burrows and Badgers, Burrows and Badgers is a skirmish game of anthropomorphic animals. It's written by Michael Lovejoy, and this version, edition 2, is illustrated by Peter Johnston. We'll get to that shortly. This is the second edition. There's some people who might argue that it's actually the third edition because there was an edition that went around beforehand, but that wasn't published by Osprey, and it wasn't a kind of like full-on kind of thing in the way that the last edition was. And this totally is. So this is the official second edition of this game. I've been playing B&B since 2018 with edition 1, and I absolutely love it. If you know B&B and you know my videos, you'll know how much this game means to me, how much fun and enjoyment I've had out of it, and how much championing of Burrows and Badgers I've done over the last few years, online, on YouTube, on my Facebook page, and in the last couple of years also at wargaming shows. So I was super excited when Michael was talking about producing this book, and it's been a while coming, and a whole bunch of us were involved in a Facebook page where players were able to kind of comment on that kind of thing. Get onto that in a minute, but let's have a look at first impressions. When I opened this box this morning, I actually thought, oh, it's not a very big book. Kind of size-wise, I was kind of expecting it to be like all the other rule books that I've got on my shelf. But then I kind of forgot that actually B&B First Edition is only this big. And side by side, yeah, it is a little shorter and a little thinner. But when you compare the two, it is a lot fatter. Burrows and Badgers edition 1. If I dive in here, go to the back of the book, goes up to page 124, and then it's got warband rosters in the back. Right, so 124, and then so you could say it's 130 pages tops. Go into B&B edition 2, and you skip to the back of the book, and you get to 272. So this, half the thickness of this. There's a lot more to B&B second edition. So what's in it? Right, okay, so we could tell the difference between the two games straight away, because in here, in B&B edition 1, the contents page is 2 pages. That was okay. The contents in here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. 5 pages of contents. And what I really like actually is each section is broken down into subsections. So using this as reference is going to be really easy. Well, no wargaming rule book is really easy. You always can never quite remember where all the rules are, but this is going to be a hell of a lot easier to use than the last one and most other wargaming rules. So when we have a quick glance down the contents section, there's the normal kind of standard stuff about wargaming rules. There's a nice introduction, a couple of pages to the world of B&B. Not a great deal though. There's the normal kind of, oh, you need miniatures and a table and dice and tape measure, that kind of thing. The rules section goes from page 15 to 37. Actually, that's about the same as first edition. That's about 22 pages of rules, although there are some differences between the two, and we'll get onto those in a moment. Then you've got creating a warband from page 38, and that goes all the way down to page 60. One difference that's obvious immediately between the two, if you've only played with these rules and you haven't used any of the rules from the trial experimental rules that got published from time to time in the Oswald Journal, you would only have used 4 factions in this rulebook. And in this rulebook there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 factions. So one of the things that I've always loved about B&B is the fact that the miniature range is super flexible. You can pretty much go with rule of cool when you're picking figures. You pick the figures you like and you can make them fit your faction. Now, that was partly because there were only 4 factions in Edition 1. Now there are 10. A lot of the figures that have been designed over the years are definitely leaning towards one faction or another. There's still quite a lot of neutral figures, but there are some that are definitely wildlings or clan, hillfolk I think they're called, or and then you get ones that are clearly mercenaries or that kind of thing. But there is still nothing to say when you're looking at the range of figures on the Oathsworn website to say you must buy these figures to play with this faction. I think it's still really flexible, and the figure range is much bigger than when I started playing B&B, and I'd still quite happy to pick up figures and put them down absolutely anywhere. Alright, so what else we got? Alright, so yeah, this is allegiances down here. Go over the page and you can see that this entire page of contents is taken up with magical archetypes. There are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 magical archetypes, different styles of magic. Over here we've got a page of equipment and skills. It carries on going over the side, and then we've got a whole bunch of stuff that's campaigns. And one thing that's really cool, I think in the last edition there were 6 scenarios. In here there are 20 what are now called quests, main quests. There are 20 main quests, so loads more scenarios in this game for you to play, and then side quests, which is the kind of like the objective, secondary objectives that were in the last game. So there's a lot more to the campaign, there's a lot more to the actual scenarios in here, which is absolutely brilliant. We might take a closer look at some of these. And then right down at the back of the book we've got an appendix which gives us some extra rules about fighting in the dark and breaking down locked doors. There's also information about freelancers. Now some of this was published originally in the Warren Percy affair, one of the campaign packs from previous, and that gives us special characters for some of the figures that Michael designed fairly early on, like the Raccoon Huntress and the Fennec Fox and Von Wuder, the Otter Mercenary. These are guys who appeared fairly early on, and there's also in here rule for the Mole Alchemist Engineer and his wild and wacky artillery pieces. But no rules for the Cave Bear in here, not that I've seen so far, and that's probably deliberate. I mean, the Cave Bear model is amazing, but of course it's not made to actually feature, it's not made to go into a warband. The Cave Bear is about scenarios and going after it, so that doesn't look like it's been included in this rulebook at all whatsoever. So the looking at the book first of all, from just the contents point of view, there's now an awful lot more to Burrows and Badgers than there used to be in the past. The campaign rules look a little bit more detailed. There are changes to the way characters get injured and recover, and what you can do in various other bits and pieces. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at some of the changes, main changes in the rules as well. But before we go any further, it's well worth pointing out that I'm loving this book from a feel. It's nicely laid out. It's easy to follow. The contents pages are excellent, and one of my very favourite things, apart from the excellent war game, is the new artwork in here. There are 30 colour plates of different creatures from the B&B world, and in fact the first time I picked it up I flicked through and found 2 or 3. I thought, oh, that's really great, and I must have picked it up 2 or 3 more times since and found other pictures that I missed the first time. They are absolutely brilliant. Here we go. It's a really lovely squirrel Robin Hood kind of character, yeah, there's a rat with a crossbow. Check that out. All done by the guys done the front cover, this Peter Johnston chap. They are really lovely figures. I used to like the Gary Chalk illustrations in the first edition. But I think the problem with that, I mean, just look at that. That's cool, isn't it? You know, I think the problem with the Gary Chalk illustrations was he had a well, I don't know. I'm kind of guessing. The brief for the Gary Chalk miniatures was fairly open, and the game wasn't very well established. We didn't really know how Burrows and Badgers worked. We didn't really have a great feeling for the world that it was in. So he kind of like produced some really great pictures in many ways. But then there are also some that kind of like he worked on from other things that were going around, and you ended up with figure pictures of stuff that Michael was never going to make, like the really cool Clint Eastwood armadillo, which never appeared and is never going to. But I think the pictures in here are a much better representation of the Burrows and Badgers world, from the foxes in 18th century Tyre to this cute, I don't know if it's a weasel or a ferret. Check out this jester. Isn't that amazing? It far more captures the feel of B&B. There's somewhere in here there's a mouseketeer swinging from a chandelier, which is absolutely fantastic. I really think they enhance the overall feel of the book. They look delightful. Here we go. It's just wicked. I'm not going to show them all, we're going to spoil it all for you. But they really help capture the feeling of Burrows and Badgers. This guy obviously has got way more to go by. I'm sure there was a lot more communication. And because the figure range is much, much bigger, and there are loads of models now and all kinds of other things. And lots of Michael's own excellent illustrations in the journals and various other places. I reckon this guy's job was a lot easier than Gary Chalk's. But these pictures go really, really well with the actual kind of like feeling of B&B. Along with that, of course, you get Michael and Joe's own photographs to illustrate the book throughout, with beautifully painted figures and really nicely made scenery. I mean, they could probably do with some Agathia Build a World scenery in their collection. Hint, hint, Lovejoys. But, you know, they make bloody good scenery themselves, so why bother? So the whole look of the book, art-wise, mix of photographs to full colour plates is gorgeous. There's loads of it throughout. This is a full colour rule book, and it's beautiful. I'm so pleased to have this. In fact, what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm going to have to buy myself a second copy, because I've got 2 copies of the original B&B, because one that got completely used and the other one that kind of like is a little bit more better condition. This is a book that I'm going to keep and cherish, especially as I get a shout out in the acknowledgements, along with a whole bunch of people from the B&B community who helped and chipped in. Now, let us now take a closer look at some of the rules changes and different things you're going to find in here. If you are new to Burrows and Badgers, this isn't going to make a massive amount of difference to you guys, because you won't have to kind of like get your head around what you used to be like and what it's like now. But it's still a very interesting thing to think about. And for those of you who are established B&B players, it's great to kind of like pick up on what's new and how the game has changed. The good news is, in the first instance, and I feel really, really strongly about this, is that I want to pay credit to Michael Lovejoy for being really aware of what the community that he's developed is about. I was really pleased that he was putting out different editions and ideas and all kinds of things to the B&B community. Many of us were able to contribute and chip in on a separate Facebook page to the main group, where they talked about second edition things. I know that Michael had lots of really big ideas for a second edition rulebook, but some of it fundamentally would have changed the way the game played. And I think most of us who own this game love it for its elegance and difference to other rule systems and all kinds of other bits and pieces. And on the whole, I think most of us felt, well, it ain't really broke. You know, don't chuck out the baby with the bathwater and all those kind of like cliches. Just make this better. And actually, I think on the whole, that's exactly what he's done. I think there were 6 different drafts of second edition B&B, and the 6th edition draft, number 6, that ended up being this. It's quite a long way away from the first edition. So, Michael, I know that there was other stuff you want to try, and I hope you keep those ideas and chuck them into other games. But I'm really pleased that you listened to the guys who are playing the game, who do hours and hours of playing, so therefore play testing, and you kind of like each edition came back closer to this, but tweaked and tidied up and neater. And in actual fact, I think we've ended up with a much stronger game that is even more playable than previously. So from that point of view, excellent, excellent. Right, okay, so let's have a think about some of the things that have changed in the actual main gameplay. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these changes between Edition 1 and Edition 2. First of all, the core mechanic of roll-offs, one stat compared against another, or a dice roll against a target roll, hasn't changed. Alright, that is still the same way of doing things. There might be slightly different things that we do when we add modifiers and bits and pieces later, but actually my strike beats your block, or my ranged attack against your nimbleness, that's still very much there. The perfect roll that we all know and love, which means that a mouse stands a chance of actually hurting a badger. When you roll a maximum on your dice roll, you get to add an extra 7 to it. That still exists too. Introduced now though is a disastrous roll as well. If you roll a 1 at any point in a roll-off, you get to add 1. Well, the fact if you roll a 1 in a roll-off, you're probably going to lose that roll-off. But you do get to add 1 fate point to that character. I'll come back to fate points in a little while, but that is an important new feature of the game. Initiative has changed. The way we work out initiative, who goes first, is now different between last edition and this edition. It's still an I go, you go, one figure at a time thing. In Edition 1, if you're a player of that, you'll remember that your leader, the attacker's leader and the defender's leader would make a roll-off fortitude against presence. That is not how initiative works now. It says here that now you have to, each player chooses one of their figures. One of their figures doesn't have to be a leader at all or a second, and they make a roll-off against each other's nimbleness. Alright, and then if the roll-off's a draw, you roll again. The player with a higher total wins initiative. They may activate a model which must be the model whose nimbleness score they rolled. And then you go backwards and forwards between the two things. You choose each other, blah 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 blah. So that is it's not a massive difference. You're still making a roll off, but it does make a difference. It doesn't have to be your leader or your first, and it now means that you can't. If you've got a really nimble squirrel, he might be the first bloke you're choosing, but it will. I think it will have a subtle effect on the way the game works, because you're choosing which figure is going to go first in the turn, and that might have an impact on what else you're doing. You can also seize the initiative, where a fate point can be used to seize the initiative. I think there might be other ways of doing that as well. You need to look at that yourself. I haven't got time to go into that. And then I think the biggest change in the game is the way the actions sequence works. Once you activate your figure, your character, they now get 2 actions in a turn. In the previous system, you got 1 action, and it came with a move. So you could move and shoot, or move and fight, or move and then move again if you wanted to sprint, or move and cast. Now move is its own action in its own right, so you can still double move by moving twice, a move and then another move, but then there are others that are the other actions you can do without moving. Now you could do them without moving beforehand, but now one of the big things is that the order that you do things in is now different, because you just do 2 actions. So you can move and then shoot. You could, if you want, shoot and then move, or strike and then move, or you can move. And there are a number of other things as well. You can, instead of, in the old game, you get a +2 modifier if you're shooting for standing still, or for casting you can stand still. Now there is an action called focus. That's one of your actions, and then whatever your next action is, it can be modified by +2. So that means that you can even make a focused hand-to-hand combat strike. If you're already in base-to-base contact, you could focus for your first action, and then in your second action, you can make a hand-to-hand combat strike at +2, which is kind of cool. You can even focus, you could even shoot and then focus, and then the next time that character is activated, its next action would go at +2. That doesn't mean you can block at +2 when somebody attacks you, but there is now an action called guard, which enables you to go on the defensive and be prepared for someone to come and hit you. So that kind of works really quite well. I reckon that's going to add a little bit to your bookkeeping. There might be the need for either a counter on the table to mark a character that has focused, especially if you're carrying it into the next turn, or maybe a marker on a stat card or something on the roster sheet that's kind of like off table, so you can keep track of that. Because otherwise, I'm the kind of player, I'm bound to forget that. There are other new actions in here. You can barge and charge. You can move into hand-to-hand combat anyway, but you can also charge into hand-to-hand combat now, which is a little riskier because you have to roll a dice to see how many inches you can move after you move, and if you don't make it, you don't make it into combat, but you do get a charge bonus, a striking bonus if you charge. Sneaking is a new action, and search now works, is still in there. The other new and significant action, I suppose, is interact. Interact, I've got to say, from a game designer point of view, is a fantastic term because interact means just that. But it's an action that means you can do a thing. So interact might be reload a black powder weapon. But from a game term point of view, interact might be unlock a door, or I suppose speak to a character. It's just doing a thing that is often not a combat related thing, or so. And certainly in the first instance, some weapons like crossbows and black powder weapons, you need to interact with them each time they've been shot to reload them. And that's another change to weapons as well. We'll have a look. We're not going to look at everything in here, but it is going to be worth mentioning some things like that in a little while. So we've got all these different actions now. They can happen in different order, and that means that the way you play the game now is going to be, I think, completely different from a thinking point of view. The fact that you can now shoot and now move away, or hit somebody and move away, or in some cases you can shoot, and if your weapon allows it, like a sling or a bow, you could shoot a second time. You could do the action again, but the second action is at -2. It means in some rounds you might want to strike an enemy in hand-to-hand combat and then strike them again a second time, but that second strike will be at -2 as well. And this really does give you a whole bunch of different stuff that you couldn't do in Edition 1, which I think is pretty cool. The double action thing also means that the rule about moving out of hand-to-hand combat is now clearer. It actually hasn't changed from Edition 1, but I think the way you make it work in your head works easier, because you now get two actions. If you're in base-to-base contact with an enemy, if you wish to move away from combat, your first move can only be no more than 2 inches. If it goes over 2 inches, you can move more than 2 inches, but then the enemy gets to attack you as you move away, and you get to defend with your nimbleness. So actually, for some characters, that still might be absolutely fine if you're super speedy, like a squirrel or a rabbit or something like that. And that has always been the case in the past. And then the second action of your turn, you could then make a normal move. So I think that actually clears it up, although it hasn't actually changed. Okay, so another new action we've got in here is guard. It's pretty simple. It says a model performing a guard action hunkers down and readies himself for incoming threats. All defend rolls the model makes the rest of the turn gain a +2 modifier. Now this word defend is important because as far as I could see, that applies to being shot at and being attacked in hand-to-hand combat. If you're hunkered down, you get +2 for either your defend roll against being shot at, which uses nimbleness, or your defend roll in hand-to-hand combat, which uses block. It's the little things that count here. It's kind of cool. Sneaking now is the way that ambushing works, and ambushing has changed, so it hasn't got that big complicated thing going on. Way less modifiers. I'm probably going to enjoy that a lot more. I'll need to play test that and see how that works out. But I think that is going to be slightly different. I never really got on with the ambush rules in the previous game. It always felt a little bit gamey to me, to be quite honest. So from that point of view, it's kind of cool. Okay. Fate points then is the other major thing I think in gameplay that you need to think about. I mean, there are other things to look at. There are now bonuses for having a height advantage in shooting and casting. That's cool. There are more rules, better rules about jumping and leaping, that kind of stuff. Check them out yourself. But fate points is now a different thing. Fate points in the old game, you have fate points to your warband, and you might gain some fate points from wandering or that kind of thing. Now, when in the journals, we went through a whole bunch of different fate points, and I really didn't like the fate point system that was put into the journals. It never seemed to work very well for me at all. Fate points now are tied to individual figures. So a character that is a model at the start of every battle, each model gets fate points. Leaders start with 3 fate points, seconds start with 2 fate points, and all other models get 1 fate point. You can gain fate points, as I've already said, by having disastrous rolls whenever you roll a 1, which means in my wargaming group, my mate Mike is going to have so many fate points it's untrue. Although you can only have a maximum of 5 fate points for each character, but he'll probably be renewing that every time he picks up a dice and rolls it. Models for fate points can be used in 3 separate ways. They can be used to re-roll a dice. They can spend a fate point after any dice roll or roll off immediately, re-roll one of those dice. That can either be in the battle or in the off-duty section afterwards in the campaign. You can use fate points to activate certain skills or spell bonuses. That's new. The description of those skills and spells will explain what the bonus entails. And thirdly, a fate point may be used to seize the initiative. So you might be able to kind of like go and get onto it and get playing and turn a turn around on its head by seizing the initiative using a fate point, which is kind of cool. So those are the major changes, I think, the ones certainly that strike me first of all from playing the game. And like I said, that's not a million miles away from the previous iteration, the first edition, but I think there's enough in there to make it a new challenge. Will refresh the game for old fogies like me who's been playing for 7 years or so, and give you a different way of thinking without actually kind of like making it leap completely away from B&B. So that's really kind of cool. Now, if you move on to creating a warband, the principles are still the same. You get 350 pennies. You spend your pennies on a number of creatures to make up your warband. A new warband, it has to have at least 2, and normally you can't have more than 10. There is the odd exception to that. And there are now 10 allegiances. Allegiances affect a little bit the way you play the game. There's still masses and masses of room in an allegiance for you to be able to do your own thing. One of the things I love about this game is the sandbox nature of it. You can do your own thing. It's very background light, to be quite honest. I'll get onto that in a little while. But that doesn't mean that for people like me, I can go off and do my own thing, and it's absolutely fine. So the 10 allegiances are now Royalist, Rogues, and Free Beasts. They carry on from Edition 1, but the Wild Beasts from Edition 1 are no more. They've partly been renamed because we now have the Kindred, Witch Hunters, Wildings, Arcane Conclave, they're all magic users, Undead, Routiers, and Hillfolk. Now, the thing about your allegiance is that tells you what kind of den you're going to have. And that helps from a campaign point of view. It also affects what equipment you can start off with, because each allegiance gets its own rare items that it can select. So if you are Kindred, for example, you don't have access to things like very heavy armour. Kindred are foresty types. They follow the Green Mother. They're all out there. They're all very Robin Hoody, if you like. And that doesn't really play well with blokes walking around, beasts walking around, clanking about in full harness of armour. So they can't have access to that. There are others like the Wildings. I haven't looked, but I'm betting they don't have access to black powder weapons because they're all kind of like savage from the moors and the caves and this kind of thing. So that's going to affect the equipment you get and also the magical archetypes that you have access to as well. So it's also worth pointing out that although you can take a warband made exclusively of mice or of rats or of badgers, you no longer get bonuses like you did in here for what was called a single species warband. In here you got extra bonuses for taking a single species warband. Now you can take a single species warband. It's not to say you can't, but you don't get those bonuses because actually at the start of a campaign especially, a single species warband could be pretty cool, but there didn't really seem to be much rhyme or reason apart from what figures have been produced as to what could be or couldn't be a single species warband. So you create your warband as you did previously. You got 350 pennies to spend. You spread that out anywhere you like. Things worth noting now though, you no longer have to pay 5 pennies for a spell that a magic user might have. They're free. It's considered that because you were also in the old game you had paid 5 pennies for a spell and you got a weak and delicate negative modifier on the character. Now that weak and negative modifier for each spell you get to start off with is considered to be handicap enough without having to pay 5 pennies. But as every figure has to have a weapon, an item or a spell, if you get to the end of making your warband and you've been out to buy a character and you haven't got enough money to buy a sword, give it a spell because that's free. So that's kind of cool. For long-time players, you will notice that there are different prices now for quite a few of the beasts. I did actually sit down and start to make a note going, oh, that's gone up and that's gone down and oh, look at that. But, you know, there are 3 pages of... No, I lie. 4 pages listing all the creatures now. So you don't need to see that in a video. But some of them have gone up, some of them have gone down. In general, the big news is pretty much, where are we? Let's have a look. I think all of the massive beasts have got more expensive. Some of the large beasts have actually got cheaper. I noticed hares are now a couple of pennies cheaper. I think otters are too. So from that point of view, that's quite neat. Some of the other creatures around about you have to look out for. So yeah, I'll tell you what, you shout them out and I'll tell you what they cost. No? Alright then. But wildcats are still, actually wildcats are more expensive and they're still in the large rather than massives. And for lovers of the first edition, first printing, there is now no longer a small breed available. Sorry. But all of those are detailed in here, which is kind of cool, including some of the new creatures that weren't featured in that original book that got covered by Oathsworn Journals, like the water vole and the salamander newts and the grubs and the undead, the mistghasts. So yeah, I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail about all the different warband types. You could dive in there. I mean, some of them are quite clear. Some of those names might not be quite as obvious too. So hillfolk are the Scottish Highlander types. Routiers are mercenaries. That's a mercenary warband. They go really well with the Lanzknecht type figures, but you can use almost anything as a routier, and they're quite similar to royalists. Kindred are followers of the Green Mother, and they're all out there, kind of like from a Robin Hoody kind of point of view, scouty type things, lots of bows. Wildings are the savage, bone-clad creatures from the moors and the caves. You've got undead, which are ghasts and misghasts and bits and pieces. And actually, I've got to say, the first reading and throughout, I still don't think, personally speaking, that I'm going to be really into them. I want to be into them, and I really love the idea of undead in all kinds of fantasy things, but I just don't think they're scary enough, frankly, in here. I could be wrong, I need to play them on the tabletop, but at first reading, I don't think the undead are scary enough. Arcane Conclave is a a warband made up entirely of magic users. They appeared in one of the journals. We, in my gaming group, Spirit of the Game, we had a campaign where we had two of the guys, Ted and Gary, had Arcane Conclaves, and by God, they were terrifying. They were really scary. The good news for us mere mortals who aren't magic users is some of that magic has been toned down a little bit. So it's not so terrifying. Witch Hunters, I'm hoping they've been beefed up a little bit from the journal version because they just didn't seem tough enough, but they are cool models. Right, okay, so skipping on from there, what do we get? Then we get probably the biggest section in the book is, I think, I'm guessing it is the magic section, right? All 12 magical archetypes. There are one, two, three, four, five. There loads of spells. I mean, loads of spells. Michael Lovejoy clearly enjoys coming up with different ideas for different spells that are going to work. Personally speaking, I've never been a big fan of magic users in war games, and I don't tend to use magic users a lot. It does give you lots of options. Then we move into skills, and actually, this is one of the places where some of the game has changed. I know that Michael's problem with the first game, and in general with war games, sometimes they can seem a bit hard to access. If you've ever stood around a war games table listening to people playing a game that you don't know about, it's just a string of numbers. Right, okay, so I've got 7, I've got a +2 for that and a +3 for that, and you're taking off a -2 for that, this, that, and the other. Right, 6. And you're like, what? Say what? How on earth did you get there? And I think Michael wanted to reduce the number of modifiers that are in the game. Part of the problem with Burrows and Badgers is the fact that sometimes somebody does all the calculations over there and they don't quite get the steps right. So in this case, some of the things have changed. And in some weapons rules and some skills rules, that's where old-time players are going to need to be careful to not carry over the old rules into the new game. For example, one of the things, being a historian and a military historian and a reenactor, I took me some time to get my head around the weapons in the old rule set. Mainly because they don't pay an enormous amount of they were never super historically accurate. And that doesn't matter, it's a fantasy game, right? It's a game about badgers and rabbits and mice and stuff, so it doesn't quite matter if the game's not historically accurate. Although being into black powder and muskets, I did always laugh that you got a accuracy modifier, +1 to hit, shooting a caliber. In first edition, the rules for the weapons very much meant, look, there are all these different cool figures I've made. I've put all these cool models on, weapons on them that look kind of cool, and now I need different abstracts for all these different things, just to have variety so people could have got a choice and they could buy things and do stuff. So I'm going to have a double-handed weapon that does this, and a polearm that does that, and a crossbow does this, and a bow does that, and a caliver does this, and they do different stuff because then they're different things, although that doesn't necessarily apply to how they actually work. So a good example of changes, tweaks that have been made come with two-handed weapons, double-handed weapons, great big swords, great big axes, like all these guys. In the old game, once you'd struck and hit your opponent, if you hit them with a double-handed sword, and there's no difference in the game between two-handed swords, two-handed axes, two-handed maces, if it's a two-handed weapon, it does the same thing. In the old game, you got +3 strong to that blow, which meant a badger, which is already strong 3, hitting with a double-handed sword was then strong 6, which is just epic. I mean, you know, you're doing masses of damage. But the problem with that is the fact that it never reflected that, and by the time you added the skills Zweihander in the old game, you got +2 to strike with that, with your double-handed weapon as well, which meant you were almost certainly going to be doing loads and loads of damage. And there was never any negative reason, apart from it cost a penny or 2 more, to have that over a polearm or something else. And, you know, giving up a shield in the old game, especially in the old game where you couldn't hide behind shields to kind of like stop you getting shot. Yeah, I used a lot of double-handed weapons. Even though, in real life, there is a downside to double-handed weapons. They're badly balanced, they're hard to manoeuvre, and they often make you vulnerable. Now, double-handed weapons, you still get a strong 3 modifier, but all block roll-offs are made at -2, which means you're better in attack, but you're not so hot when you're defending, because you're overbalanced, you're out of kilter, you're easier to hit. So those kind of things we need to look at. And the skill Zweihander, which used to give you +2 to strike, now just negates that -2 block modifier. So still a useful skill to have, but it doesn't make your guy quite as much as the tank as you. Another one of my favourite changes to weapons is, because I'm into black powder in the real world and I shoot calibers, is a caliber is a little different now. It shoots further. It's got a range of 36 inches now, which is pretty much across any B&B table. It still has the rule temperamental, which means it can break and fall over, but it can be repaired now with an interact thing. It has the rule slow now, so you can't shoot it over and over again. It has to be reloaded. But to make up for that, it now is strong 3, which is better than it used to be. And they can also ignore 2 points of tough provided by armour. So if you're up against that heavily armoured hare, for example, with heavy armour, you ignore his heavy armour and you're hitting at strong 3, which is really pretty cool. They don't, however, get an accuracy bonus anymore, because black powder weapons, they were a bit crap. They weren't very accurate at all. They punch really hard, but they're not very accurate. We get other changes to missile weapons. Bows now can be bows or war bows. Not everybody can have a war bow. You have to be at least strong 2 to shoot a war bow, so that's going to restrict it to some bigger, beefier characters. Regular bows can shoot up to 18 inches. They're going to still shoot quickly, so you can shoot them twice a turn. In fact, with fast shot, you can shoot them more than that. War bows can shoot up to 36 inches, but have to have a creature strong 2 to shoot them. Still quite quick shooting. And then you get light crossbows and heavy crossbows, and it's similar kind of thing. A light crossbow shoots up to 24 inches and is strong 2. A heavy crossbow, let's have a look, blah blah, you have to be at least strong 1 to use a heavy crossbow, so mice aren't shooting heavy crossbows. They shoot up to 36 inches and they count as having strong 4. Ouch. And they don't benefit from the strength of the creature shooting them, but strong 4 when you're getting hit is probably one of the best weapons in the game. And they also ignore up to 2 points of tough provided by armour. So that guy clanking around in very heavy armour, which is giving him tough 3, when he gets hit by a strong 4 weapon that ignores 2 points of his armour, whoa, he's not so invulnerable as he used to be. I like it. Yeah, now can't. What else have we got in here? Oh, I'll tell you what, there was another thing that I was really, really pleased about. We've binned the, when I say we, Michael has binned the holding a single-handed weapon in 2 hands gives you +1 strong. Excellent, because that's just nonsense. And not everybody now can fight with a hand-to-hand combat in each weapon, because that's way too complicated. I know, I've tried. We do it. I do it for real. Actually fighting with 2-hand weapons is not a thing that was done across many periods in many places, and in most cases it really doesn't help what you're doing. So you now have to have a special skill to fight with a weapon in both hands. You're going to have to dive into the skills and the weapons yourself, and other equipment to see how they work, and spells, because there are little bits there being tweaked. Ether Sight is nowhere near as good as it used to be from a skill point of view, which stops you zapping people halfway across the table when you're in Arcane Conclave. So there are tweaks and bits and pieces, and in this first instance, and I've literally had this book in my hands for 6 hours, which is not enough time to go through everything. You're gonna have to go through that yourself. There are all kinds of things in here, and it's definitely keeps the whole kind of like game feeling very much the same. But you are gonna have to go and look for your favourite things to see if they've been affected. There are little bits one way or another that kind of like work or don't work, but mostly work. I like it. The extra equipment that appeared in things like the War and Percy affair and all the various journals, the good ones of those are now just in here as well. You don't have to go looking for any of those. So from that point of view, it's very, very concise and complete for the time being, until Michael gets his next set of cunning ideas. I haven't had a chance to have a look through all of the campaign section, although it looks more in depth. Like I said earlier, there are now major injuries and minor injuries. There are changes to the way that you do upkeep and the way you do the post-battle sequence, which is quite cool, and wandering, that kind of stuff. If you've ever tried writing your own wandering tables, which I have done, it's kind of tricky, so you don't want to kind of upset things too much. And then we then get, of course, all the scenarios. Like I said earlier, there are now 20 scenarios in here, which is a massive leap from previous. There were only about 6 in the last rulebook, which means the longevity of this game is even better. I mean, you could write your own scenarios, of course you can, but it's nice to have loads in here to dip into. And the secondary objectives. And there are tertiary objectives. Just thought of that. Every allegiance has got its own objective if it does a thing itself during the battle. I haven't had a chance to have a look at all the scenarios because that's going to take months and months and months. But I think I am going to do some bat reps for some of them as we go along, because it's kind of like a lot of fun. So to sum up, look, it's no secret that I love Burrows and Badgers Edition 1, and I'm sure I'm going to really, really enjoy Burrows and Badgers Edition 2. And I'm sure the guys I play with will as well. I've got every figure in the B&B range. Now 2/3 of them are painted. I've got a bunch more to paint. Apart from anything else, Michael very kindly sent me the 2 new starting warbands, which are awesome as well. If you buy a starting warband at Salute, you will be given a short guide to getting started with Burrows and Badgers. All right, this comes with a starting warband, and it gives you the breakdown of some of the small bits from the game basics, and also how to go about building your own warband and that kind of thing, which is kind of cool. This is going to be available, as far as I'm aware, chatting with Michael, as a downloadable PDF on the Facebook group as well, or off the Oathsworn website. So if they run out of these, then don't worry, you can still get hold of it. And even for established players, it's worthwhile getting a copy of this one way or another, I think, so you can have a peep at some of the changes from the old to new. All right. So in summary, this is a beautiful book. I love it already. 6 hours in my hands. The artwork is fantastic. The photographs are gorgeous. The general kind of like feel of the game, I don't think it's changed very much at all. Like I said, thank you, Michael, for not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think this is still going to be a cracking game. Enough of a challenge for me to start playing again and be thinking, oh, this doesn't work the way it used to, which is great because it just refreshes the whole thing. Look, I can't pick that many holes in it. If it was me, if I have to be super picky, I would say I could live without 1 or 2 of the magical archetypes, and I would have liked 2, 3, 4 more pages of world building and explanation in the world of Northumbria. I mean, personally speaking, I don't need it, because the games that I play with my gaming group, we've built on, like I said, this B&B is an amazing sandbox. You do your own thing. But there are lots of questions that new players often have, like how big are the creatures, what do they eat, and all kinds of other bits and pieces. How does all of Northumbria work? And I think when you're hard pressed, and obviously we had more space to go into this book than the last one, when you're hard pressed for space and you want to get all that good gaming stuff out, something kind of like goes to one side. So I would have liked more B&B world building background myself. 3 or 4 pages. Doesn't need any more pictures. In fact, to be quite honest, they could have dropped a couple of the illustrations to squeeze that in, but every single one of them's gorgeous, so I don't really mean that. My only other picky bit at this point is I just don't think the undead are hard enough. I don't think they're scary and terrifying. And for me, as a fantasy gamer, I think undead is the most kind of terrifying of them all. The stable ghast in this game, if they're by themselves, but I mean, but that's a really small, finickety, pickety kind of thing. It might chuck up other stuff as I go along. I don't know, because I haven't had a chance to really play it yet. If you want to play 2nd edition Burrows and Badgers in the very near instance, you can either probably play a demo game at the Oathsworn stand, or they're going to have a table there, a gaming table, which Michael Lovejoy, the author of the game himself, will be running at Salute. That's what I meant to say. Salute, April 12th, 2025. Myself, Magathea Builder World, and my gaming group Spirit of the Game will also be running introductory games of 2nd edition Burrows and Badgers at our stand stand, table, whatever, at Salute as well. So do please come and join us, and you can come and have a look at it there, and you can come and tell us what a cool game you think it is and all that kind of stuff too. So I know that this game is going to be on sale at Salute. I think that's for the first time. After then, it will probably be available on the Oathsworn Miniatures website really soon after that. I know there's a space, and it's already on there, just as out of stock at the moment. And Osprey have said it's going to be on general release in the UK from the 24th of April, I think. So second edition B&B, in a word, fantastic. You got to play it. I've always said when I found Burrows and Badgers, if I ever had to choose one war game that was the only one I was allowed to play from here on in, 7 years down the line, it would still be B&B. The figures are charming, the gameplay is excellent, the narrative is great fun. What's there not to love? Undead, I suppose. But yeah, so I hope you found this video useful and enjoyable. If so, and you're into B&B, comment down below, let me know what you think. If you have never played Burrows and Badgers before, comment down below, tell me what you think of this video as well. Are you feeling now inclined to go out and play it? I want to do more bat reps this year. I want to do some more new second edition B&B bat reps. They're going to go with other battle reports. And I know that Michael Lovejoy very much at some point on his massive list of things to do would like to do some introductory videos to second edition. Would you like to see some Magrathea Builder Worlds introductory videos to B&B as well? Let me know in the comments down below, or on the B&B Facebook page, or on my Magrathea Facebook page. This has been Magrathea Builder Worlds. Click like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at Salute.